Three, two, one.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody out there in Facebook land. My name is Judah Hoover, and this guy right over here is Josh. I am a realtor and a real estate investor. Josh is a hard money lender and a real estate investor. Josh, we have not done an update on our show here or for the show recently on the flip and the rehab that we're working.
Oh, man.
There about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And we got to get back out there and show people to see how much great stuff is happening.
Well, it's going to be insane. It's going to be totally insane. I think probably Monday, maybe we'll have to do a supplemental show, maybe Wednesday of next week at the latest.
Nice.
Show some of the changes that have been happening on the flip. I got to tell you, man, this place is really turning out to be an amazing property. The framing is probably about 50%. Took a little bit longer to get a delivery. By the way, if you need 2x3s for any reason, forget about it. You're gonna have to rip it's like nobody's got a 2x3 in Central PA, and there's no lead time. So they just tell you, sorry.
Right.
Good luck.
Right. They'll be ready a week from next never. That's when they're going to be ready.
Dude, apparently Taz is learning
I was going to say, Taz, you learning supplemental languages here. A 2x4 is not available no matter which language you wish to discuss the topic.
Yeah, so I mean, there's some. We're gonna revisit this. I actually reached out to Taz today about getting him in to do some HVAC work over for us.
Taz was really great. He was also, was it Taz that was saying, so I get a whole bunch of funny owner questions and tenant questions, and I really struggle to not post them on Facebook because I think they're hilarious, but I also have like privacy concerns and things like that.
Yeah.
Taz said that he got a call from somebody this week and said, hey, I bought a new stove like 4 or 5 days ago. I'm not sure that they hooked it up right because I smell gas in my house. And Taz was like, hang up the phone and call the fire department. Well, I don't really want it to be like a, false alarm or anything like that. And, put them off. Hang up the phone and call the fire department.
Yep. Listen,
that's what they're there for.
I had a standing dispute when I had a property management company. I got a bill from the Philadelphia Gas Department for $3,500 because we had a stove delivered by a third party. They didn't install it correctly, cranked on the gas, and the tenant smelled gas. We said, call the gas company, call the fire department, get out of the house. It was like it could have blown up the entire block. They had to vacate all of the houses on the block, air the thing out. I mean, we're talking densely populated area, right?
Yeah, I was going to say Philadelphia is.
It's a huge problem. I mean, a little bit of gas does a heck of a lot of damage. So yeah, call it if you smell gas. Call the fire department.
I have a close personal friend. I don't know. You probably weren't living in the area when this happened, but I have a close personal friend that was in the explosion that happened in the Millersville area about 2-3 years ago, where a house was like leveled, like it was a crater. It's ridiculous. Dude, what it looked like. And my close friend, it is. I try not to go too preachy on the show, but it is a miracle, legit, that he is alive.
Yeah,
because he showed up to respond. I have. My pastor's wife's house is like 2 miles, linear miles away, something like that. I think it's like 2 miles. It's a ridiculous distance away, and their sashes broke.
No, really?
Like there was that much.
You're talking window panes, right?
So what's weird is the window panes didn't break, but the actual sashes like ended up cracking. So yeah,
dude. Meanwhile, Taz is like on the phone with the guy. And he's like, yeah, I smell gas, and he's trying to light a cigarette, right? like, hey, everything's fine over here. Just pass me, pass me a pack of cigs. Anyway,
so great, Josh. We didn't even get into the content. Dear listeners, pay attention to the beard because I don't think it's long for the earth. I think that I think it's time to shapen up and start acting like a responsible citizen and member of society again. It took me 8 months of quarantine to grow a 1 month beard. I'm very proud of it. But my son the other day said to me, Dad, that's a very nice salt and coriander beard you have there. For the foodies out there, coriander is a brown spice as opposed to a salt and pepper beard. He said that I have a salt and coriander beard. So kind of proud of that. So we have a ton. I thought that was funny. It's really rough. Sometimes I forget that we're not in front of a live audience and that there's no laugh track or anything like that. And so it's really hard to tell whether these jokes are landing as funny or not funny or whatever. So I think that that's half the reason why podcasts have like 10 or 15 people there now when there's like these slice of life podcasts where it's like, based around a celebrity, is there's people there just to laugh and say whether something's funny or not funny or what's going on. All right. So Josh, you and I were talking, we have a ton of news.
Well, we're not even going to touch a fraction of what we could,
right.
Sometimes we do this show and there's like 2 or 3 great stories. And then there's like, oh, the unemployment rate is, it's the same as we talked about last week. And yada, yada. I mean, I don't even have unemployment on the list. And, sometimes talking about the same story in new and creative ways is definitely a challenge for our copywriting team. But we found a whole bunch of news stories to talk about today. So let's jump in here, buddy. Awesome. Let's rock out.
Start off with Man Crush right at the top.
That's exactly right.
Our boy Elon Musk.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I'm sorry. I'm so excited. We've got so many news stories that I had to put my Man Crush first. Like, we got to start with this. Last week, there was some kind of summit or some kind of car show in Germany, right? And where is it here? The Axel Springer conference in Germany, right? And Elon Musk shows up and he does a couple interviews, and all of a sudden my news feed is so darn full of Elon Musk news. I can hardly.
Do you have a Google alert for Elon Musk set? Is that what it is?
No, I read all the articles I see. You know what I mean about him and about that technology that he's putting out there. And so, hey, look, Google is learning about me. It knows all about me. I'm all about take my data, give me great news stories. That's what we got here. So, all right. So, apparently, Elon Musk is saying that by 2026, he's fairly confident that we're going to be landing people on Mars.
Right. I mean, even if he's off, the major governments of the world are talking about this being still a 20 to 30 year horizon. Right. So I love how close we are on this. And he's working. He's got to get his spaceship ready, but he did re-entry and landing reusable boosters when nobody thought that was anywhere near possible for another decade or so. And so his Starship, SpaceX Starship, that stainless steel monstrosity, it ain't pretty to look at. But what I love about it is the possibility of carrying 100 people at once. Because most of the times when people look at these Mars missions, when they're done via National Geographic, like as pseudo documentaries, or there's been a whole bunch of books written about them, there's only one book that I know of, and it's the Red Planet, Blue Planet, Green Planet series that talks about the first mission being 100 people mission. And so that could kind of be exciting is if we actually send 100 people to Mars for that first colony.
Well, I think the cool thing about this too is you think about all of the missions to the moon, even all of, you think about the space station. We've never had 100 people on the space station.
Right.
Across the planet. I don't know. It's just amazing.
There's a lot of people out there who are really doom and gloom about a lot of stuff. And when I look at what we're doing with space, when I look at what we're doing with real poverty, when I look at what we're doing with real hunger around the world, and what we're doing with a whole bunch of other disease control and things like that, there's a whole lot to be bullish on for the state of human affairs and the state of humanity, and Elon Musk is out there leading the charge, and it's really exciting to see.
Judah, we live in the greatest country in the history of mankind. Like,
right.
It's amazing. All right, so a lot of this is being made possible because of our second man crush news item. Tesla is now the most valuable car company in the entire world.
Right.
And this comes on the heels of Elon Musk also talking about, the same interview time frame, talking about next year having fully autonomous level 5 vehicles on the road.
Right.
The thing that blew me away about doing a little research on this is a level 5 vehicle means that the car can drive without a human driver, right, and without a steering wheel.
Right. So where we are right now is, they broke this down, and we're not going to get into it, but they break down, autonomous driving in 5 levels. And I forget, it's been a little bit since I've looked at this, but I think we're at like, the argument is we're somewhere between 2 and 3, like, where on the highway, Tesla's kind of operate as a 3. Like, they basically do most of the steering, basically just have to be there to, like, babysit it and make sure it's not going to do anything stupid or dumb. They're talking about that with this next stuff, it could be level 5. What's really cool is I was just recently pricing Teslas, because it's a bucket list item, and it's a goal that I have for 2021 if I meet certain other things. So my Tesla is going to be a reward to myself. So bottom line, I'm pricing out Teslas, and like all Teslas now, when you're looking at ordering a new one, it's like, check this box if you want the $10,000 potential fully automated self-driving upgrade. It's not there yet, but you can pay $10,000 extra to Tesla so that it's more streamlined to get it when the actual technology is there.
Well, and so the very interesting, the whole thing about Elon Musk is, like, the reason I love that Tesla is so valuable is because it's not like yes, he's the second richest man in the world now. That could be on here as its own slide. It's not, but he takes his profits and reinvests them in other areas. And so he's taken all of this, value that he's brought with Tesla, reinvesting it in SpaceX. I'm sure he's doing some things with Neuralink. I saw an article today about a big push to hire someone to design a chip that integrates with, artificial intelligence, which is pretty amazing. But it's not like this money is just sitting there static. And this is a perfect example of when you have an entrepreneur that makes money. Like, you want these entrepreneurs to make a ton of money because they're going to make a huge impact on life in general by reinvesting that capital. And they get up their own plane and they get a huge house or a couple houses, but it's such a fraction of the value that they're bringing to society. It's pretty amazing.
Right. I think one of the deep thinkers that I like said, what if the price of us having neat stuff is a small percentage of the people out there having neater stuff?
Yeah.
What if the price of us having neat stuff is some people having that neat stuff about a year or 2 years before we can?
Yeah. I mean, I read an article. This is going back a couple of years now. There was an economist who decided that he was going to make a pretty simple meal, call it like a ham sandwich or something like that. Actually, it was a BLT. That's what it was. It was a BLT. And the cost for him to start from scratch with raw materials and end up with the BLT months later, it was something like $3,000, right? BLT. And I mean, I don't think anybody's spending $3,000 for a BLT, and that's mass production. That's living in society. That's capitalism, and it's pretty cool. All right, man crush, we're going to put you behind us. Elon, keep killing it. Now we get into some housing news. So we're coming.
I love that this is the first housing story that we're starting off the day with, because Josh, you were like, hey, Judah, we're going to talk about this, and this. I've got a whole bunch of great housing news and things like that. And I'm like looking through what you're trying to talk about, and I was like, wait, other than Elon Musk, there's good news in here? Where is
great news? This is great news, and
go ahead. Why is this great news?
So
go ahead.
First and foremost, let's set the table, right? We've had this eviction and foreclosure moratorium that's coming to an end at the end of December. Now, this is the CDC moratorium. This is not the Fannie and Freddie. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But this CDC moratorium says, hey, you can't evict people for non-payment of rent through the end of December. And we've got a little bit of a perfect storm in that on December 24th or 26th, right around Christmas time, the unemployment benefits for a lot of these unemployed workers is set to expire. And then you have the eviction moratorium coming to an end a few days later. And on paper, it looks like there's 18 million people, 18 million Americans that could face foreclosure or eviction January 1st. That's a huge influx of homelessness. It could be a real big problem if this plays out just as written. But the truth of the matter is, there's a lot more going on than just, hey, these are the facts, this is how it's going to play out. First and foremost, 18 million people in an economy of 330 million ish. It's not small, but we're talking about 5%. Right. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's really unlikely that a lot of these people are actually going to be evicted or foreclosed. I've seen numbers that are a lot more realistic, closer to the 5 million, 5 million Americans mark, that I think is probably a lot more representative. Now we're talking about 2 or 3% of the population, which is a lot more in line with
what would expect during normal times anyway.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
When you use a small percentage of a big number, it's still a big number, but the converse is true too. When you look at a big number and you just look at it by itself and forget that it's a small percentage of a big number, well, that's just how it usually is. There's always going to be people who are facing foreclosure or eviction for reasons that have nothing to do with what else might be going on in the world at the time.
Well, so the second good news part of this story is that, even if these numbers are really huge and big, doggone it, I forgot it. I'm going to have to come back. I'm going to circle back because this actually is good news. Darn it. This is what I did. This is what I get for thinking about too many things at once. All right. Let's.
So unemployment numbers are set to expire. Yeah. They are close to a deal where they're going to have supplemental. So on top of normal unemployment, supplemental of $300 a month. So we as a company, we're knocking on the door of managing 5,000 units. By the way, we're like
kudos
5,000. So we are really close to that. And the point is, we've got a lot of data. And we did really good the last time around. We're looking at doing really good this time around. And a lot of it just has to do with being empathetic to people and having a good relationship with your tenants. And certainly not letting yourself be taken advantage of by your tenants and being walked on by your tenants. Recognizing that your tenants are your customers and you need to have a good relationship with your customers. And if you do that up front, you can then call them and say, hey, where are you at with your rent? Oh, you were laid off. Oh, well, do you have the unemployment plus the supplemental unemployment? Actually, you should be in as good, if not better shape to make your rent right now. Can we, set up a payment plan, or how can we work through this?
Well, and so this is the piggyback good news. It's in my last bullet point here. Most of this potential homelessness is occurring in larger metro areas where the cost of living is significantly higher, where you have a lot of turmoil going on in local governments and a lot of other stuff going on. So areas like New York, Atlanta, Houston, where we've had huge influxes of population, or we've had a huge shift. Like Houston, the population has really jumped. Atlanta, they've got a really consistent, but we've seen an uptick in the population and the demand to live in those areas. Whereas New York, you've had people fleeing from the city, and what you end up with are, marginalized individuals that in the best of times were having a hard time paying the rent. And now as the economy has changed, or, the lower end of the economy has felt a lot of the squeeze that we saw during the pandemic, these people are running on hard times. When I say the good news, what I am saying here is in areas in secondary and tertiary markets, that's where people are moving to, number one. And number two, it accounts for a much smaller percentage of that 5 to 18 million people that are at risk. And so you've got really, really consistent markets in most places across the country that are in an uptick. And in some areas, we have high potential foreclosures and eviction rates. That's the bottom line. But in our area, Central PA, we're really thriving. Really thriving.
Really
All
looking great.
Another eviction and foreclosure moratorium note for the fourth time since the beginning of the pandemic. The FHFA, Federal Housing and Finance Agency, has extended the moratorium on evictions until the end of January now. It keeps getting pushed back, At this point, any of the any mortgages backed by Fannie and Freddie are subject to this moratorium. And as such, they're looking at an additional cost for 1 month delay of between it says 1.1 to 1.7 billion, but we're talking about a total cost for this moratorium of $7 billion. That's some real money.
Yeah, that's real money. It's all being absorbed by the federal government, and I think they're going to have to print money to keep up with it. And I think that that they are interested in doing that because they're trying to create inflation, because inflation has been so low for so long.
For landlords, there might be something on the horizon to stop this continued moratorium, and that is in Alabama and Georgia.
Right.
The Alabama and the Georgia Association of Realtors filed suit against the Trump administration this past week over the CDC's foreclosure and eviction ban. Now, I didn't dig real deep into the filing and read each lines of the filing, but their main complaint is basically that, look, the CDC unilaterally stepped in and they shifted the burden of these unpaid rents and of the pandemic from renters to landlords.
Right.
And as we know, something like 49% of all rental properties are owned by mom and pops. That's people that have like 1 to 10 rental units, and missing a rental payment for a lot of these people, it's going to either eat up their. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know you are not necessarily being exact in your speech there, but just so you know, it's not even just 1 to 10. It's like 1 to 3. I think our average owner, we work for about 1,000 different owners, and our average owner has 3 to 4 units.
Yeah, I believe it. Here's what's crazy about this suit. We're talking about just in Alabama and Georgia, the cost of these moratoriums add up to somewhere between $55 and $75 billion in unpaid rents in
That's
two
crazy.
states. In
That's
two
crazy.
states. Yeah. So
but anyway, hopefully it either goes away or the CDC doesn't renew it. And the reason they're filing for this is to get the case law on there so that the CDC can't do this going forward into the future.
Well, I want to make a comment on Matt. Matt mentioned, this is temporarily absorbed by the federal government. So actually, Matt, that's not even true. The FHFA moratorium is absorbed by the federal government.
Right.
This stuff is absorbed by the banks and the landlords. It's not a moratorium.
Yeah, I think he was referring to the last story.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, this is a big thing though, because it's not like the federal government came in and said, "Hey, listen, we're going to pay the mortgages for you while we're, in this shutdown." They just said, "Sorry, landlords.
Right.
Tenants, you don't have to pay rent." I mean,
all they did is shift the responsibility, and
right.
It's really unfortunate.
Right. So there are some big players that are sitting around and waiting for the crash to come.
Josh, I know during pre-show you explained to me, I still don't understand why there's a white tiger. Is this your Carol Baskins fetish making itself manifest here? Is that what's going on? What's the white tiger?
I wanted to see how many times throughout a month I could slip in a random slide or a random image.
Right.
No, for the truth is, this is a tiger that's ready to pounce. Right.
Oh, right.
That was the idea. So you have all these family offices, and just in case you don't know, family offices are they're LLCs or businesses set up to manage the funds of high net worth families.
Correct.
And so they're, imagine your uncle wrote a program for Microsoft, wrote a program, sold it to Microsoft for $20 million or something like that. He nets 18 million, and he's got to do something with that. Essentially, these family offices are businesses that manage the money that come from these large.
Right. You would go out and you would hire an accountant, hire an attorney, hire one or two investment bankers, and say, here's $18 million. Make enough money to pay yourselves every year and pay my kids. And then you say to your kids, hey, listen, you've got this nest egg here that you've got to invest and work with so that you can grow from 18 to 25 to 30, and you can continue to pay for all your kids. It used to be that we had a feudal system where, people had land and that land got passed down. Now people acquire wealth and they pass that wealth down, and it's a way of, creating a family legacy.
What I thought was really interesting in this article, two things. First thing is that going from first generation to second generation, 70% of the wealth is totally lost. And by the time it gets to the third generation, where it's the grandkids, 90% of that wealth just disappears.
Yeah.
So
essentially, sleeves in 3 generations. What I found interesting about this was that there is 7,000 of these family offices throughout the U.S. I mean, that's a pretty big number, and almost $6 trillion with a T. That's not an insignificant amount of money there either. The other takeaway from this is that since 2015, not that long ago, just over the last 5 years, the percentage of holdings, so of that $6 trillion, it used to be that 12% of it was in real estate.
Yep.
Now it's being shifted to it's now 20%. So probably sold a lot of gold and probably sold a lot of bonds and sold a lot of other things moving into real estate. And what's interesting is they are poised to turn around and buy more, hence the tiger. And I think that is going to continue to buoy housing prices. However, what's interesting is, do you have it here? Yeah, workforce housing. So that is Class B and Class C level properties.
Yep.
And there is a lot of less than desirable sections of places like Philadelphia and Baltimore and other primary markets where they go in and buy up 3 or 4 block radiuses and either tear down and rebuild or buy and renovate. They buy these houses for $2,000 to $3,000 a piece. They renovate them to the tune of $40,000 or $50,000, and then they sell them to turn through a turnkey provider to these family offices for $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, and they rent them out for $800 to $1,000 is kind of the business model that happens there. So for real estate investors, the good thing to do is buy in the path of progress, identify the path of progress, verify the path of progress, buy in the path of progress. The reason you have to verify the path of progress is I see a lot of people looking at demographic numbers and they say, oh, what was it? What was this number in 2018? What was it in 2019? Well, great. Therefore, I'm going to buy in 2020. Well, that's just one number. Like, you've got to go back to make sure that you're actually seeing a trend here. You're not seeing a temporary blip.
All right. I'm going to throw out a breadcrumb real quick here. Yep. If you are having a hard time determining what the underlying value of the asset is, like, let's say you think we're at the top and we're poised for a crash. I don't, but let's say, okay, if you go back to 2010 and you look at the value of real estate surrounding that property, that's your bottom. I mean, almost in every market, there are some anomalies, but almost in every market, 2010 was the time when we saw a lot of people coming in with cash, buying and just living off cap rates because they couldn't refinance these properties when they were done with them. And so that's the investor cash price. 2010 is the number. All right.
Yep. That's a beautiful breadcrumb, because our market's not going to get worse than 2010. We've had inflation since in 2010. Yep. If anything happens that makes your property go down less than what we were in 2010, you shouldn't have been owning any real estate at all. You should have owned beans, bullets, and bottled water. Like it just,
it's true. All right. So Steve Mahler, Steve, thanks for the comment about the insane housing prices. FHA heard your cry.
Yes.
FHA has upped their loan limits for conforming mortgages going up in 2021. Now, Federal Housing Authority, Federal Housing Administration, they have a formula that they use to calculate the bottom and the top, or the floor and the ceiling of their lending window, let's say, right? And when I say the floor, these are areas that traditionally are not like real high-end areas. They might be, rural areas, or they might be depressed areas, but essentially it's 115% of the median home price. And then you've got the top end, where we're talking about areas like New York, Connecticut, California, where we just consistently have excessive home prices and cost of living. And so they set these numbers in different areas based on what the median home price is in those areas. And what they're saying is, starting January 1st, conforming limits are going to increase by about $25,000 in the floor, and in the ceiling, they're going to be about $57,000, which is pretty significant. I mean, that's a big chunk. It ends up being about 8%, an 8% increase. So that's saying something. We'll revisit. Go ahead, Jude. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just going to say that the reason we're seeing an 8% increase there is because we haven't seen increases in probably too long. So there's been some pent up demand for that. I would not expect another 8% increase next year. Next slide.
Right. That's right. All right. Now, we talked in late August about some fees that were going to be assessed for refinances for Fannie and Freddie backed
half
loans.
a point. They're basically going to start charging half a point if you want to refinance. And this makes sense because if Josh is a lender, and he is, but let's say instead of doing short-term loans, Josh wanted to do long-term loans. And Josh is like, okay, I'm going to go through the hassle and headache and problem of lending Judah Hoover money for this fixed return for likely 5 to 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
When we are in a rate falling market and really a rate collapsing market, there's nothing that stops Judah from refinancing 2 months later, 6 months later. There used to be prepayment penalties, but they made those illegal when the two guys named Dodd and Frank came in and ruined the mortgage industry. So we need to. So if Josh goes through the economic and payroll and headache investment of lending Judah Hoover money, and Josh only gets paid interest for 2 or 3 months, and then Judah refinances and goes to a different bank, Josh lost money on that transaction. And it's not going to be long before Josh decides, you know what, I'm just not making new loans. I'm just going to keep the loans I have, and I'm just going to service loans I have, and I'm not interested. So they need to kind of put some brakes on there to make people not just refinance at the drop of a hat, and make sure that it's actually really worth it to refinance. And also, we don't want ABC lender that I'm potentially going to focus on refinancing people. We want them to focus on making new home loans to new people, buying bigger, because even though some people move down, most and consolidate and downsize, most people move up or are first-time home buyers. So putting in a rate collapsing environment like we've seen the past 2 to 3 years, this as much of a laissez-faire individual as I tend to be, I understand for the health of the economy why we do things like this.
Well, and meanwhile, the mortgage industry is calling this a middle finger to the American public.
Sure, absolutely.
It's hilarious. But yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, what I think a big argument from Fannie and Freddie on this issue was that, hey, look, these mortgage lenders, they were charging this anyway. They were charging this by the arbitrage between what they were getting the money at and what they were, lending it out at. So why shouldn't we just absorb that cost? And if you are in the midst of a refi or you are applying for a refi, this fee may already be built into the closing costs. It may already be part of your interest rate. So ask your lender. They'll be able to help you out with that.
Yep.
Final news item of the day. I mean, we have covered a ton and we didn't go real deep today, but final news item of the day is just surprise, surprise. The housing industry is hot as can be. It's really, really strong, and it continues to just burn, which is raising some potential red flags with low-income housing advocates about affordable housing. And it's
I saw somebody just recently again was talking on Facebook. There was somebody posted and said, "Hey, I'm looking to get $1,100 a month for this property," and you would not believe the hate that they receive from people about gentrification, about pricing people out of the market, and listen, like, I can take the other side of that. I can argue both sides of that coin and understand it. The problem is when people are as passionate against the rising housing prices as what they are right now, which I think is foolish, and there's very good reasons for that to be happening. Government usually steps in. Whether government should step in, whether it's government's role to step in, those are intellectual debates that we can have at another time.
Yeah.
The point is, what you need to be ready for, dear listeners, is you're not going to stop it. You're going to spend a lot of time arguing and pissing people off on Facebook about it or other social media about it. What you need to do is recognize and be prepared for potentially some government intervention to stop the raising of rents and stop the raising of housing prices like they have been.
This is this could be a really big deal. I mean, let's face it. If we all of a sudden find out that you can't raise rents for 2 years, or you're put in a situation where, hey, look, this moratorium continues and continues and continues. The government comes along and says, hey, listen, we're going to bail you out as a landlord, but you got all these strings attached. There's a really phenomenal landlord advocacy group in Philadelphia. It's called HAPCO. It's the largest single-family resident, the largest landlord advocacy group in the country. And they have fought Philadelphia many, many times over some crazy proposed legislation. I think it's time for more local RIA groups, more local organizations to really start examining some of the laws that are likely to come about and be prepared for that, so that we don't find ourselves scrambling when Harrisburg says, hey, listen, we're going to cap rent rates at $950 a month, or
I think that what's going to happen, I think that the reason we tagged this on here at the end is because before we actually see anything, there will be trial balloons, and there will be a couple people who kind of champion this movement. Josh and I have been watching real estate related news for 2 decades, and we're able to read the tea leaves, and we're able to see that this is something that's coming in 6 months to 8 months to a year. It hasn't been coalesced yet, and there's not enough specific talk about specific possibilities for us to talk more intelligently about it. Right. And so we've got some runway here, and it might fizzle, but it's also something that we want you to know that we're seeing is potentially coming, and we think you should keep your eyes on. And when you listen, I remember the first time when I heard a political commentator that I like and appreciate say, yeah, they're going to start hating on SUVs, and you're going to see them really talk bad about SUVs. And I was like, the environmentalist wackos are going to be able to talk people out of buying SUVs? Like, how is that even possible? What mental gymnastics would you have to go through to think that the car you buy is bad? And sure enough, 6-8 months later, that's what happened. And so I just, if you start to see government intervention here, you heard it from Josh and Judah first.
You heard it here first. Breaking news. All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. Really great show today, Judah. Good job. If you enjoyed what you saw, make sure that you like and share the show. again, share the show with your friends, invite them to watch. Judah's going to be back here tomorrow. I'm taking the day off. My wife and I are going shopping, spending the day together. So he's going to be doing the heavy lifting tomorrow. Yeah, so that's all I got for today. Have a fantastic Thursday. Go out and make some money. And Judah will be back here with you tomorrow.
We'll see you later, everybody.
All right. Take care.